covering SMS receiver example. So for this one, you need to download the SMS broadcast receiver template from Canvas. That will give you just this project. It has just a main activity and its corresponding Java file. What we're gonna be doing here is reading text messages using a broadcast receiver. So the first thing we need is to create a broadcast receiver. So let's choose our project, go to new, other, and broadcast receiver. Let's call it the SMS receiver because we're gonna be using it for receiving text messages. Make sure that you have the exported and enable checkboxes. That just ensures that your receiver will be able to be called even when your application is not on the running at the time on the foreground. So we're gonna delete this boilerplate code, and the first thing that we need to do is tell Android that we want to be able to receive text messages. So we're gonna say that our application uses permissions for Android read text messages, and whenever we receive text messages. So this is going to be receive SMS. Perfect. So we have here our broadcast receiver. We also need to add an intent filter here. We're gonna see why, but if you notice here, when you're dealing with the onReceive method on a broadcast receiver, it receives an intent, so it should be able to listen for intents. So what we're gonna be doing is adding an intent filter, saying that we want this receiver to be listening for implicit intents that have to deal with the Android provider. This is going to be telephony and SMS received. So that's going to be the action or the type of intent that we're going to be listening to is was a text message received. Whenever that happens, Android sends a broadcast of intents of type SMS received. We want to also say that we want this intent to be looked at when you're just looking for the default action for it, which is generally to read and open the SMS received. Now, once we have that, we can go ahead and write our onReceive method. The first thing that we need to do is get the data from the intent. Remember that the intent stores the data inside of the extras, so we're going to get all the extras. So the extras are going to be inside of a variable of type bundle. We just say get me all of the extras from the intent. Now let's import the bundle class. And since we can have a single broadcast receiver that handles more than one type of intent or type of action, then we're just gonna add a small if statement to check if the intent that we're responding to is the right type. So in this case, we're gonna say get the action from the intent and make sure that it equals the corresponding intent that we want to listen to. In this case, it's going to be the telephony dot SMS dot intents. So it's going to be an intent of type SMS action received. If that is true, then we're gonna add some code here. We have to get a couple things from the bundle. So the first thing we're gonna do is make sure that our bundle has something there. So if the bundle is not empty, that is, it is not null, then we can get data from it. So the first thing that we're gonna be getting is the text message data. This is going to be in an array. Now the way text messages are stored in Android is as a PDU. So that is just the standard to manage text messages in mobile phones. So to get all of the text messages, what we have to get is the byte representation of those messages, which is put into the extras inside of the PDUs. So PDUs is just this array of data. Now we have to explicitly cast here the type, and this is in the order. And we also want to have the format. So this doesn't have to be final. Format equals bundle dot string. What string are we looking for? Well, just the format. The format specifies the encoding that was used in particular to save the PDUs in this particular bundle. So with this information, we will be able to parse the byte information that is stored in bundles and retrieve the actual text message. Since we have an array, we're going to be using a loop here. So in our case, we're only going to be getting one, but it could be the case that you have a very long text message that is split into multiple parts. So you could have multiple PDUs, or you could be looking at multiple PDUs that are basically the same message. So let's look at how many PDUs we have, and then for each one of them, we're gonna say we want to create a message. So it's going to be a text message, SMS message, and to create it, all that we need to do is call the method create from PDU. So here, what do we need? We need a PDU. Well, we have PDUs here, and we have the one at I, and then we need a format. We also have the format. The name of this one is different here. And that's how we create a text message from the byte array content. Now we also have to explicitly cast this and tell it that it's a byte array. And then we can actually use that current message. So let's look at current message, and then we're gonna get the source or the sender, and also let's get the message body. So message body is going to be the message itself. So it's going to be string sender, and this is going to be a string representation of the message itself. Now that we have both of those things, we can do something with it. So in our case, we're just gonna use a log statement, SMS, and let's do a message here. And for the log, let's create this print message. Yes, let's print the sender. And the message. And then we're also going to put it into a toast. So the context is already given by us, comes with the parameter on the onReceive method, the text, it's gonna be the message we want to print, and then the length, and then don't forget to call show. Now let's run our application. With our emulator, Now this is the settings that you can use. So if you go down here, you will see these three dots. Just click on it. Usually it will be on location. If you go to phone, you will have this little interface that you can use to send text messages to your phone. So this is our app, and let's just send a message to our phone. As you can see, there's something here, and over here we already have the message being printed. Let's look at our log, and let's see if it was printed. Yes, I think that our message was printed. Okay. And let's fill our application. There is one thing that you may run into, and it's a small problem that you're gonna have with permissions, and it is the fact that in newer versions of Android, you have to manually grant the permissions to the apps. So here, you're telling Android that your app will be using this permission, but you haven't asked the user if you can actually have that permission to receive text messages. So what we're going to be doing here, and if you've used an Android phone, you will have seen this, that the first time you open an application, you get a little prompt that asks you, do you want to grant this permission to the application? So that's what we're going to be doing next. So if you go here, put the if, then context compact. This is just one of the base classes from activity. We're going to check if the permissions for this activity are granted. Which permission? Well, the permission given by the manifest permissions to receive a text message. Now, if the result of this is false, what is false in this case, it is the value given by our package manager dot permission granted. So this if statement will check if our app has permission, which permission this particular permission, then it will return the value specified here. If not, it will return something else. Now if we have an app and it just happens that the app doesn't have the permissions that we want, then we have to ask for it. So just say activity compact, request for permissions. Who do you want to ask the permissions for? This application. And we have to give it the permissions that we want. So this is going to be simply an array of strings with the permissions. Which permission do we want? Well, just the same one that we checked, that we didn't have. We pass it here, and then we have to pass into it a request code. Now the request code is gonna be application specific code that you pass into this parameter that should be larger than 0, and it will be matched with the result. So it is effectively used by Android to check if the ad has a permission. It will send a request with that code, and then it will read a response similar to a broadcast receiver. It doesn't wait for the response, it just waits for a response and is listening for it, and if it matches that code, you know that it's the response that comes towards your application. Now let's go back to our emulator. Let's run our application. Let's make sure we have our broadcast receiver here. That's good. Good. And our log, it's SMS. Let's edit the configuration filter. SMS is the tag, so I should print all of the messages with that tag. We have that. Let's change this message. It's as dog, send message. As you can see, this one was received by our application, but it's still not showing up in our log. Sometimes Android does this thing with the log, so what I have noticed helps is to completely kill the application rather than restarting it, then running it from scratch. That basically means you're gonna be installing it entirely. And excuse my log. Perfect. SMS. Okay, there's something here. Great. No, it doesn't have anything to do with our app. There's some errors happening in the emulator, but it doesn't have anything to do with our app. That's probably what is making the log not be printed properly. Okay. Let's try once again. Come over here. Let's try printing another message that says on receiver. Suppose the emulator. Saving the state. And there the process finished. This is uninstalling the app and reinstalling it. And we have this. Let's open our internet controls, go to phone. This is the default one, didn't hear. Let's say something. That's our broadcast receiver. Well, we're looking at a dead one. Oh, no wonder. Yeah, the logcat is not being attached to the emulator properly. That's why we're not seeing it. Okay. Let's see if we can get this one now. Okay. Message once again. Thanks. Okay, that's it. But my emulator is still not doing well with the messages themselves. Yeah, so I'll have to work on my emulator on the log. But as you can see, all the information from the broadcast received where is being handled properly. So that's everything for this one. What I would say you should try is to first replace the toast, and instead of just using it here, try to do something else with the data from the text message. You can also look at the resources and send that message somewhere else. So just extending this functionality to send a text message rather than just reading it. You can do some changes here on the main activity such that you show the content of the message on the activity here. Okay, so that's it for this one. Thank you for watching.